Welcome back to the CSS Grid course. This is part of my full stack roadmap series, which is going to take you from never having written a line of code to deploying a full stack e-commerce app with React. If that sounds interesting to you, be sure to hit that subscribe button and check it out up here. It's also in the description, a couple links down there for you, including the series playlist. This is the first video in what I'm calling kind of the intermediate CSS Grid. So not going to be too much harder than what we've covered already earlier in this course, but I am going to get into some things that are not considered, I guess, essential. They're just add-ons that make the CSS Grid system a little bit easier to use. The first thing I want to talk about is grid gutters. So basically the little padding or space between each of the grid items. Now, of course, you could go to each grid item and put some margin on it, which might help a little bit. So let's say that we put some margin of 10 pixels on grid item number 1. You'll see that it does something to space it out, but we get some unexpected behavior. For example, it shrinks, and if you tried to do that on all of the items, it'd get a little bit tedious. There's a much easier way to do this, and it's using the row gap and the column gap property. So if we type in row gap and set it to 10 pixels, that's just an arbitrary amount that I put in there. You'll see that between each row, if I turn on the grid container, you'll see that there's some space there indicated by those hatched areas. If we put column gap in there of 10 pixels, same thing will happen on the columns. You'll have that little space in there, which is really nice if you're creating, say, an image grid or something like that. The next thing that we have not covered yet that we need to talk about is the automatic flow algorithm of CSS Grid. So there is one property, one CSS property that will control the algorithm that CSS Grid uses to place these items within the grid. As you can see, by default, these grid items are going along the row, and then they're breaking to the next line, going along that row, and then breaking, so on and so forth. But just like we talked about with Flexbox, if you remember, we had the concept of a main axis and a cross axis, where we could determine how those items, the flex items, were flowing on that axis. With Grid, of course, we're in a two-dimensional world, so there really isn't a main and a cross axis. There's just horizontal and vertical, but we can define which way those grid items are going to flow. And the way that we do that is through the grid, what is it called? I need to reference something real quick. Let's just pull it up here. So it will be, I think, grid auto flow is the property that we'll be using. And it shows, controls how the auto placement algorithm works. Now there's several values that you can put in here, but the most common are going to be row and column. So if we come back here and we put grid auto flow and set it to row, nothing's going to change. And that is because by default, it is set to row, I believe. So if you go to initial value, it's going to be set to row. So nothing changes here. But once I put it to column, things are going to stack vertically and then spill over onto the next column. So you can see how this would be useful. It's kind of like setting the flex direction. If you go back to that Flexbox course that we had earlier, and it tells the items which way to travel in. So I kind of like to think of this similar to the Flexbox flex direction property. So if you remember from that course, we talked about if you set the flex direction to row, everything moves horizontally. If you set it to column, the main axis is vertical and everything flows vertically. So I kind of think of this similar to that, but there's a lot more power to it. And if you go to the cheat sheet that I mentioned at the beginning of this course a couple videos ago, and you come down to the auto flow, I like this visual here because it kind of shows, like, as you add more grid items, which way is it going to go. The one that's a little bit confusing is the dense property. You might look at this visualization and you can't really tell the difference between row and dense. So the dense property, you can read about it on MDN, but it basically is an algorithm that says, okay, if we're spilling grid items over to the next row or whatever, and there's differently sized grid items, and there's some extra space that opens up in the grid based on how everything is flowing, go ahead and try to wrap those additional grid items into that empty little space. This property, of course, can cause a situation where the grid items are no longer in the order that you originally placed them in because they're wrapping up and trying to densely pack themselves into the space available. The next topic, which I think is going to last us until the end of this video, is the difference between an explicit grid and an implicit grid. This sounds intimidating, but it's not. I'll show you exactly how you can derive the difference. So right here we have what we just talked about, and we have 5 grid items. Now in this scenario, the grid is big enough to fit all the items. So if we turn on the grid, you can see there's empty spaces here that we could continue to put these equally sized grid items in. Now, if we were to remove this grid autoflow, so let's put it back to the default, which if we don't specify is going to be row. And then what we can do is reduce the number of rows. So instead of having 4 rows equally sized, we're just going to have, let's just say 1 row. So we'll say 1 FR, which is going to define 1 big row. And what you'll see is we've got all of these first 4 taking up that first row, and then our 5th item, because there's only 4 total columns in 1 total row, it has nowhere to go. So what happens here is it actually gets put on what we call the implicit grid. So our explicit grid is what we define with these 2 properties right here: grid template rows and grid template columns. If you don't define them at all, then your whole entire grid is implicit. If you do define them, but then you put more grid items than are allowed within the bounds of that grid you've defined, then it's going to be half explicit and half implicit, or however many items don't fit. So in this case, 1. So the question is, how do we know how big that 5th item is going to be when it spills into the implicit grid? By default, it's going to take the size of its inner content. And in this case, we have defined the 4 columns, so it's going to be as wide as those columns are. But in terms of the row, since we don't have that extra row, it's going to smush it to be the size of its inner content. So you can see that it's just about the size of that number 5 right there. With the use of 2 additional properties, we have the ability to set a default sizing for anything that falls onto the implicit grid. This can be helpful in some cases because oftentimes you're not going to know how many grid items are going to be within your grid, so you need to define what those defaults are going to be so that all the extra items, if you're loading in dynamic content, you need to be able to respond to that. And you know, if your database loads 1 extra item that was not in the explicit grid, what's going to happen there? You need to have something to respond to with that. So those 2 properties are going to be set on the container level because they apply to all the grid items. And what they're called is grid auto rows, and that's going to be the total, I believe that's the total height that we're defining for each additional row. So if we were to set this to say 75 pixels, I would expect that 5 to get a little bit taller. So it does do that. And then we have grid auto columns, which is not going to apply right now. But let's put it to 30 pixels just because. And the reason it doesn't apply is because we have broken onto the implicit grid from the row perspective, but we're still within our columns here. So if we wanted to see how this works with a grid item breaking outside of both its row and column, we can actually explicitly place a grid item onto the implicit grid. We'll keep grid item number 5 as the one we're working with, and then let me put the line numbers back on our grid. So I did that in the developer tools over here. And we'll come down and define the style for grid item number 5. And we'll say grid row start. We want to start this on row number 2 because there's actually, so we see 1, 2, and 3, but in our formal definition, our explicit grid, we only defined 1 row. So if you put this item between 2 and 3, which technically doesn't exist, it's still going to work. So all you have to do is say 2 and then grid row end is going to be 3. And then likewise, you can see in the columns, we've got 1 through 5 right now, and that's because we set 4 columns, which is going to result in 5 lines or fence posts, as we call them. But just like we can do with the rows, we can start our item at number 5 and extend it to number 6, which doesn't really exist, but once we define that, it will. So we can say grid column start is going to be 5, and grid column end is going to be 6. So what you're looking at now is an item number 5, which is completely on the implicit grid. So at this point, we can really start to see how these two properties that I showed you work. So if we wanted to change the auto height, so anything on the implicit grid is going to have the height we give this. So let's give it 100. That'll make it taller. And then right now we've got this auto column set to 30, which is why that 5th item is so narrow. What we could do is we could say, I want that to be 150 pixels. And now you see the explicit grid is really morphing to fit what we have put on the implicit grid. Now that's a little bit extreme. Let's put these auto dimensions to 50 by 50, which is going to be, I believe, a little bit, well, let's see. We have our explicit grid is defined as 4 columns, and we've got 300 pixels, so that should be 75. So 50 is going to be a little bit smaller than the default item that's put into our explicit grid. Let's add one more HTML element, and we'll call this grid item number 6. And then we can come down and copy this style right here. So grid item number 5, we'll put that as grid item number 6. So instead of 5 and 6, we'll go for 6 and 7, which is going to create yet another piece to this implicit grid. But as you can see, these two items that we've added outside the explicit one they have the same dimensions because we set those as the auto rows and auto columns property right here. But let's say that we have more content in one than the other. So let's put in like a bunch of numbers here for this last one. And you'll see that now our numbers are actually, let's turn our grid back on, our numbers for this one are spilling out of its container. And we obviously wouldn't want that, and this is pretty common that grid items are going to have slightly different sizes in certain scenarios. So a popular way to use these auto rows and columns is rather than setting it explicitly, we can give it a minimum and a maximum value. So there's a function called min-max within CSS, just something that you kind of learn as you're working with grid. And the first argument is going to be the minimum value, and the second one will be the maximum value. So at a minimum, I want these rows to have a certain height. So maybe I'll stick 50 pixels in there as the desired height, but then I'll say I want an auto property for the maximum. So if the content is really tall, it's going to fit that height automatically. And if we put this same thing in for our columns, you'll see that this content that is wider than what's available right now is going to hit that upper bound of the min-max property, and it's going to fit within its grid item. Now obviously you're not going to see a scenario exactly like this. I broke this out really just for demonstration purposes because it's really clear to see which one is the explicit and which is the implicit grid. But more realistically, you're going to have something that looks like one big explicit grid. So let's uncomment this real quick, and then we will remove these styles right here, so those are no longer going to be sitting there. Most likely you're going to see something like this, where you've got the explicit grid up top and then you didn't define the rows or anything. And quite honestly, you could just delete the grid template rows completely. And what that's going to do is going to pretty much create implicit rows across the whole entire grid container. This is where we could come in, say we have like an image grid and we want 4 columns to be explicit. So we always want 4 columns, but we want the rows to just be automatic. We don't want to have to size them for each row. So what we could come in here and do is just remove that grid template rows. So what was sitting up here, we already removed that. And then we'll have our auto rows and columns, or we probably don't even need the columns right now because those will be naturally set. And then let's get rid of this and just set everything to be, say, 100 pixels. And now you can see that the entire grid here, we have an explicit grid going on the column direction, but on the row direction, it's inheriting this grid auto rows of 100 pixels to determine the size of each row as we continue to add content. And if we copied a bunch of these down, you'll see the same thing is happening. We're actually going to spill out of the grid because there's too much content right now. Let me go ahead and just copy something that will fit though. And as you can see, we've got a 300 pixel tall space for our grid. We've added 10 pixels of gutters. So if you count those up, there's one gutter of 10 pixels, another gutter of 10 pixels. So that's 20 pixels. And then you have 100 pixels tall auto rows because we set that property. So if you add this up, you've got 100 plus 10, so 110 plus 100, 210 plus 10 is 220, and then 220 plus another 100 is going to be 320, which is going to break out of that 300 pixel space. But if we wanted to fix that, we could of course come down to our grid container and then just remove that height bound. So once we remove the height, it's going to just fit the grid container perfectly. So there's a lot of flexibility here with CSS Grid, and especially with the explicit and implicit grid. It's an intimidating concept, but once you see, it's really not that bad. All right, that wraps us up for this video. In the next one, we're going to be talking about a few other ways to use CSS Grid. Now, so far, if you look at this this chart right here, we've covered pretty much everything. So we've covered grid row start all the way through grid column end. Justify self, align self, covered that a couple videos ago. Template rows, template columns, row column gap, grid auto rows, grid auto columns. All of that's covered. We have the grid container alignment covered for the most part, all these values, but there's one missing, and that's grid template areas. And that's going to open up a whole nother discussion, which would be really fun to get into and talk about how do we name our grid areas and how do we name the lines that we're putting our grid items in relation to. And then finally, of course, we have the Holy Grail CSS layout that we're going to do as a final project for this. That'll be the video after the next one. So hope you're excited for the next couple videos, and I will see you there.